marry Brody, she would already be out of the relationship. A marriage is a contract. So if you find a deal breaker, you gotta get out.
This isn't a love story. It's the collapse of a family and the ego of a man who thought God chose him when really TLC did. There are many ways to join a family. Some people marry into it, some grow into it. And then there is Robyn Brown, who apparently absorbs it. Her tenure in the Sister Wives dynasty reads less like a love story and more like a slow, methodical takeover. Every tradition that once belonged to someone else, Mary's Christmas pajamas, Christine's Thanksgiving turkey, has somehow migrated to Robyn's domain. It's as if she wandered into an existing household and began quietly relabeling everything with her own name tags. And yet, for someone so fond of family traditions, Robyn seems to have contributed exactly none of her own. Instead, she has perfected the art of selective inheritance: borrow, claim, and rebrand. The pattern is so precise it almost deserves applause. Why bother cultivating a legacy when you can annex one that's already been tested on television? Even her contributions appear to come at someone else's expense. It's hard to imagine Robyn hunching over a sewing machine to make holiday pajamas when there's a joint bank account nearby. The fan consensus is simple. She buys, she borrows, she benefits, using other people's money to purchase other people's memories. But the greatest irony of all lies in how the Browns, a family once marketed as pioneers of plural harmony, managed to end up orbiting around a single woman's gravitational pull. Robyn didn't just marry Kody Brown. She married the show, the image, and the franchise. Bit by bit, she inherited the empire, until the once loud chorus of sister wives became little more than backup vocals to the Robyn and Kody reclamation project. For a woman so frequently armed with moral lectures, Robyn's relationship with religion is a flexible one. She wields the culture of her former faith like a prop, invoking our church and our beliefs whenever it conveniently suits her argument, usually to regulate someone else's behavior. When her daughter's boyfriend dared to show affection, Robyn retreated behind the old fortress of religious propriety. The problem, of course, is that neither she nor Kody has belonged to any church for years. This kind of selective piety would almost be amusing if it weren't so transparently manipulative. Robyn has become a theological ventriloquist. She throws her voice into whatever doctrine happens to justify the moment. Polygamy? Sacred. Privacy? Essential. Control over adult children's relationships? Absolutely godly. It's all divine until accountability comes knocking, at which point she transforms into the misunderstood martyr of spiritual confusion. Nowhere is Robyn's brand of control more evident than in her parenting. Her children, grown in body but not in autonomy, live as if the air outside the family home is laced with toxins. Adult offspring who ask permission to attend church at 22 are not sheltered, they are stunted. It's the tragic byproduct of a mother whose overprotection masquerades as care while quietly suffocating independence. Aurora, the most visibly infantilized, drifts through her early 20s with the demeanor of a preteen under surveillance. She blushes, seeks permission, and trembles with obedience. A portrait of learned fragility. The fault is not hers. It belongs to the overbearing system that raised her to fear adulthood. Robyn has managed to turn motherhood into a soft cage, one lined with love, dependence, and the quiet assurance that no one can function without her. When her daughter finally introduces a boyfriend, the encounter unfolds like a hostage negotiation. Kody, eager to prove his relevance, launches into a sermon about chastity that would embarrass even the most devout Puritan. The young man is grilled, moralized to, and ultimately told that kissing Aurora before marriage would be equivalent to kissing another man's wife. It is a grotesque blend of patriarchal delusion and self-parody, especially from a man whose own courtship history involves midwives, mistresses, and conveniently selective memory. Kody's moral compass spins so violently that it could power the family's Flagstaff mansion. When he lectures about purity, the footage from earlier seasons plays like a Greek chorus of hypocrisy. The man who kissed Robyn while Christine was in labor now insists he didn't touch her before marriage, a claim immediately contradicted by TLC's own archives. Viewers, armed with receipts, don't need divine revelation to spot the lie. But the real comedy lies in the way Cody and Robyn try to rewrite history, as if the audience suffers from collective amnesia. He clutches a cross around his neck these days, a convenient symbol of reinvention. It's a spiritual costume, a desperate attempt to cloak self-interest in redemption. When your legacy includes emotional abandonment, televised tantrums, and failed marriages, a necklace seems a modest price for salvation. Every episode with Robyn and Cody is a study in denial, staged as devotion. Their home, a warehouse of Christmas decorations, unused toys, and store-bought nostalgia, resembles a shrine to overcompensation. They hand-wash dishes in a multi-million-dollar home as if manual labor might scrub away the stench of hypocrisy. The decorations are new, the tree is miniature, and the sentiment is synthetic. Meanwhile, Robyn's nervous laughter fills every awkward silence like air freshener in a room no one wants to admit smells bad. She calls their faith our culture, their dysfunction our journey, and her husband's neglect misunderstood fatherhood. In her world, language exists solely to disguise reality. Her romantic dynamic with Cody has also shifted from smug infatuation to visible disgust. Gone are the coquettish smiles and public flirtations that once tormented the other wives. Now, every touch from Cody is met with the facial expression of a woman bracing for a sneeze she hopes never arrives. The chemistry has evaporated, leaving only obligation and a camera crew. The tragedy of Sister Wives isn't merely that it documents a failing family. It documents a family pretending the failure is growth. Robyn and Cody's joint revisionism has reached a level of absurdity that rivals historical fiction. They now speak as though they were paragons of virtue besieged by the moral shortcomings of others. Robyn, forever misunderstood, claims she only wanted unity, while Cody insists he was sabotaged by disobedient children and disrespectful wives. The truth is far simpler. Unity requires equality, and neither of them ever believed in that. Robyn wanted hierarchy disguised as harmony, and Cody wanted worship disguised as love. When the other women stopped kneeling, the empire crumbled. Cody's idea of fatherhood operates on a strict policy of proximity. If the child lives under Robyn's roof, they are beloved. If they live elsewhere, they are strangers. His empathy is location-based. He performs paternal devotion with Robyn's children, using them as props in his redemption arc, while conveniently forgetting that other offspring exist. When Garrison's death failed to provoke genuine remorse or introspection, it became clear that Cody's capacity for empathy is theatrical at best. The man who weeps for the cameras cannot seem to pick up the phone for his estranged daughters. He preaches about chastity, discipline, and respect, but cannot master the elementary act of parental affection. What makes the Browns so fascinating and so exasperating is their utter inability to see themselves. They are both the crime and the cover-up. Cody condemns others for defying his leadership while simultaneously breaking every rule he once enforced. Robyn mourns the loss of family unity even as she isolates herself from everyone not financially or emotionally beneficial. Together, they perform a duet of self-delusion, harmonizing on the chorus of "Poor Us," while standing in a mansion paid for by the very dysfunction they claim to despise. And yet, Robyn's power persists because she understands the camera better than anyone else. She cries strategically, tilts her head at the precise angle of innocence, and wraps manipulation in the language of spiritual sensitivity. She isn't just a participant in the drama, she's its director, co-writing the script with Cody while convincing the audience that she's the reluctant heroine. Every empire built on vanity must pay tribute to its own absurdity, and Robyn's reign is no exception. The price has been her children's arrested development, Cody's descent into self-parody, and the permanent exile of the women who once gave the show its heart. Christine found liberation, Janelle found peace, and Mary found a friend who finally tells her the truth. Robyn, meanwhile, is left with her trophies, a husband desperate for attention, a house full of unwrapped ornaments, and a televised legacy of emotional foreclosure. The great irony is that in trying to preserve the image of the perfect family, Robyn dismantled it piece by piece. She became the curator of what used to be, the self-appointed guardian of a past she helped destroy. The woman who once claimed to want sisterhood now presides over silence.
And so, Sister Wives has become something remarkable in its decline, a reality show that accidentally turned into a cautionary tale. It's not about faith or plural marriage anymore. It's about what happens when self-righteousness meets spotlight. Robyn's inheritance wasn't just the family's traditions. It was its dysfunction, its ego, and its inevitable collapse. Kody Brown has always imagined himself a visionary, an amber-haired Moses leading his plural flock through the wilderness of monogamous America. In practice, he resembles a small-town showman who confused his reflection for revelation. Every sermon, every pout, every follicular flourish of that over-processed mane is performed for the same deity, Kody Brown. His life's mission appears to be the public reenactment of male insecurity in 4 acts, one wife at a time, culminating in the final, desperate monologue of a man who can't understand why his congregation has left the tent. For years, Kody sold the mythology of divine order. He, the chosen patriarch, they, the obedient wives. When that edifice cracked under the weight of reality television, he didn't question the theology. He simply rewrote the scripture. In this revised gospel, betrayal replaces accountability, and every woman who exits the circus becomes a heretic. Christine's independence, rebellion. Janelle's self-respect, insolence. Mary's exhaustion, disloyalty. But Robyn's every tear is canonized as holy water. The man has invented a religion in which martyrdom pays residuals. What Kody calls spiritual leadership is, in truth, public relations. His commandments shift with the camera angle. He can denounce kissing before marriage while simultaneously starring in archival footage of himself doing exactly that. He can condemn lust while confessing, without irony, that intimacy with his wives once served as an outlet. An outlet, as if women were household sockets waiting to recharge his ego. Kody's moral lectures would carry more weight if they weren't delivered between hair flips and self-adoring smirks. His now infamous warning to Aurora's boyfriend, that kissing her would be tantamount to kissing another man's wife, belongs in a museum of patriarchal absurdity. It's the sort of statement that manages to insult women, men, and language simultaneously. In Kody's universe, daughters are inventory, and virtue is a transferable warranty. The logic is chillingly transactional. Until purchased through marriage, a woman's body remains under paternal lien. It's biblical ownership rewritten by a man who sells gun parts and televised melodrama. And yet, the true marvel isn't that he said it. It's that he said it on camera, convinced the world would nod along. The delusion of moral grandeur is complete when a man mistakes his own misogyny for mentorship. There is no fantasy Kody loves more than the cowboy one. The boots, the belt buckle, the drawl thickened for the occasion. It's frontier cosplay for a man whose wildest adventure is reorganizing his garage. His father was a cowboy, and Kody clings to that lineage like a birthright, polishing the myth until it gleams with performative masculinity. He speaks of grit and duty while nursing the manicure of a man who hasn't touched a fence post in years. The cowboy image, like the cross around his neck, is costume jewelry for the soul. Whenever real emotion threatens to intrude, like the grief of his estranged sons,
He retreats behind this mythic frontier stoicism. Tears are rebranded as leadership. Abandonment becomes discipline. Narcissism gets a sepia filter and calls itself heritage. Cody's approach to parenting is a masterclass in selective devotion. The children under Robyn's roof are showered with attention. The others are invisible unless there's a camera to catch the reunion. He mistakes televised contrition for redemption, believing that if he emotes on cue, forgiveness will trend on social media. When his sons wept for acknowledgement, he responded with lectures. When his daughter begged for connection, he offered choreography. An embrace rehearsed, lit, and branded for primetime. He is less a father than an emotional influencer, monetizing dysfunction one confessional at a time. The tragedy is that his children have learned the script. They speak to him as though addressing a panel judge, gauging tone and phrasing lest their sincerity be edited into disobedience. Somewhere between the Las Vegas cul-de-sac and the Flagstaff mansion, Cody stopped being a husband and became a character study in televised self-worship. Each season documents a fresh experiment in image control. The strategic necklace, the new moral campaign, the ever-lengthening hair.
He doesn't simply face the camera, he seduces it. The lens is his last loyal wife, patient, uncritical, and always ready for another close-up. When the real women left, the camera stayed, and that was enough. His flirtations with religion, chastity, and cowboy virtue are all acts in the same tragicomedy. A man attempting to baptize his vanity in whatever ideology happens to be fashionable that week. What makes Cody's brand of sexism so infuriating is its self-regard. He couches domination in the language of protection, as if ownership were a form of care. His daughters are lectured about purity. His wives are chastised for insufficient reverence. Yet every boundary he sets for others, he erases for himself. He sermonizes about obedience while mocking the women who built his household. He demands respect while performing public tantrums worthy of a rejected Bachelor contestant. And when confronted with his failures, he retreats into victimhood. The misunderstood patriarch besieged by ungrateful followers. Cody's moral high ground is less a mountain and more a sand dune. Impressive from a distance, but one gust of truth and the whole thing collapses. Every narcissist needs an audience, and Robyn serves the role beautifully. She is the echo chamber wrapped in mascara, the enabler who translates Cody's ego into the language of martyrdom. Together, they perform the world's longest couples therapy session without the therapist. Her tears are his applause. His self-pity is her script. The dynamic is grotesquely symbiotic. He gets devotion, she gets dominance by proximity. Watching them reassure each other of their righteousness is like observing two mirrors arguing over who reflects the light better. Cody's greatest skill is rewriting the past before the commercial break. He speaks of the culture I came from, conveniently forgetting that he grew up in conventional Mormon suburbia, not a polygamist commune. His own parents converted late. His personal rebellion against mainstream faith arrived only when it offered narrative potential. Every retelling amplifies his heroism. The harder life contradicts him, the louder he narrates. When Christine or Janelle recall events differently, their memories become disrespectful. His is the only version allowed to survive the edit. The result is a man trapped inside his own propaganda. He cannot see the absurdity because he has cast himself as the martyr in a film of his own making. Now in middle age, Cody faces the one opponent he cannot out-argue: time. The curls have thinned, the bravado has curdled, and the swagger looks increasingly like a limp. The wives who once orbited his ego have spun into independent galaxies, leaving him alone with the echo of his own voice. Even Robyn, once his most enthusiastic disciple, now flinches when he reaches for her. The woman who built her power by playing muse has discovered that proximity to narcissism is not companionship, it's radiation. You can only bask in it so long before it burns. Cody's undoing is not that he lost 3 wives, it's that he cannot imagine himself without an audience. His masculinity requires constant reflection, women to validate it, cameras to immortalize it, enemies to define it. Remove those, and the myth collapses into the man, a petty, insecure figure polishing his belt buckle in a garage that looks like a warehouse for unfulfilled dreams. He mistakes volume for authority, control for leadership, and sexual access for affection. The wives' departures weren't betrayals, they were acts of survival. What remains is a man screaming into the void, still expecting applause. If reality television is modern folklore, then Cody Brown has become its cautionary tale. He began as the charismatic outlaw challenging social norms and ended as the punchline of his own sermon. His insistence on moral superiority has aged into parody, his family into collateral damage. He preaches chastity while romanticizing his own infidelities, sells unity while practicing division, and claims spiritual authority while running a household like a midlife crisis support group. The contradiction isn't the flaw, it's the foundation. In the end, Cody Brown is not the leader of a plural family. He's the sole surviving member of a religion with one believer. The temple is a television set. The scripture is a script. And the congregation has finally changed the channel. The Brown family began as America's favorite moral experiment. 1 man, 4 wives, and a promise that love could multiply like compound interest. It was supposed to prove that plural marriage wasn't about power, but about faith, family, and divine structure. Instead, Sister Wives has devolved into a 20-season masterclass on ego, erosion, and the impossible mathematics of emotional inequality. The great polygamous dream has collapsed, not with scandalous explosions, but with the slow hiss of escaping illusion. What began as a social statement ended as a therapy session gone public, a patriarch out of sermons, wives out of patience, and children out of respect. The Browns once sold themselves as a celestial cooperative, but time revealed it was a pyramid scheme with Cody perched firmly at the top. Each wife invested her youth, her income, and her identity with the promise of eternal dividends. The only person who ever saw real profit was the man writing the rules. The system worked, briefly, as long as the wives mistook exhaustion for devotion and rivalry for righteousness. But polygamy, like any other utopian enterprise, depends on the willful blindness of its participants. Once Christine looked up from the chaos and noticed she'd been tithing her happiness to a man who treated her like an employee, the theology cracked. Once Janelle realized obedience was just code for silence, the scripture burned. And once Mary saw her loyalty repaid with mockery, she stopped confusing endurance with virtue. The entire celestial order collapsed because it was built on a premise Cody never truly believed, that women are equals in spirit, not extensions of his ego. For years, Mary Brown was the perfect acolyte of pluralism, disciplined, dutiful, and perpetually punished for it. She clung to a marriage that existed only in Cody's nostalgia reel, waiting for the man who discarded her emotionally to rediscover his conscience. When she finally detached, it wasn't with rage, but with a sort of serene exhaustion, the peace that comes when the gaslight finally flickers out. Now, surrounded by friends and freedom, Mary looks like a woman unlearning captivity in real time. Her laughter still sounds tentative, but it's no longer piped through the filter of fear. She is proof that liberation doesn't always arrive as a roar. Sometimes it enters quietly, through the side door of self-respect. The irony, of course, is that Cody only began acknowledging her worth once she no longer needed his recognition. The patriarch's approval has become like his hairline, receding, selective, and largely imaginary.
Christine's departure remains the franchise's only act of genuine revolution. She stopped performing gratitude for a man who hoarded affection like a miser, and in doing so, exposed the fragile scaffolding of the entire enterprise. For Cody, her exit was betrayal. For viewers, it was the first moment of authenticity in years. Her happiness with her new husband, David, seems to irritate the Brown patriarch precisely because it disproves his central delusion, that his approval is oxygen. Watching Christine flourish outside the compound must feel, to Cody, like watching the prisoners escape mid-monologue. Christine has the rarest commodity in the Brown universe: joy without permission. And nothing threatens a narcissist more than someone else's unregulated contentment. If Christine was the rebel, Janelle was the quiet resistor. She played the long game, budgeting, mediating, and pretending neutrality while Cody performed public martyrdom. In the end, it was Janelle's calm detachment that dismantled him. She didn't scream, she simply stopped participating. Cody mistook her composure for complacency, not realizing that silence can be a strategy. By the time he noticed she'd emotionally left, all that remained was a woman who had mastered the art of self-containment. Janelle didn't just survive polygamy, she out-evolved it. In a family built on hierarchy, she discovered autonomy. In a religion built on submission, she found sovereignty. It is no coincidence that Cody looks most frantic in her presence. She represents the one thing he can't manipulate: indifference. Robyn won the war and lost the prize. She achieved what the others refused to sustain: exclusivity. The man who once distributed affection like a communal resource now belongs entirely to her. The tragedy, of course, is that she seems to find it unbearable. The dynamic she once flaunted as romantic now reads as claustrophobic. The woman who used to twirl her hair at every hint of Cody's attention now looks as though she's mentally calculating escape routes. Her tears still flow on cue, but the subtext has shifted from triumph to fatigue. She has become the widow of her own ambition, trapped in a monogamy she never actually wanted.
Watching Robyn recoil from Cody's attempts at flirtation is the purest form of poetic justice. For years, she preached about intimacy as a sacred duty. Now she's the one citing headaches and boundaries. It turns out that living with your own propaganda is more exhausting than preaching it. If there's any lasting tragedy in the Brown saga, it belongs to the children. A generation raised in a house where love was divided by schedule and loyalty by address. Cody's selective fatherhood has left deep fissures. The children of the original wives grew up navigating emotional hunger as a family tradition. Meanwhile, Robyn's offspring remain sheltered to the point of paralysis, adults in name but not in practice. Aurora's anxious dependence, Brianna's absence, Dayton's quiet exile. Each is a symptom of a household that confused control for care. Their mother's protectiveness has become their prison, and Cody's overcompensation, those hollow lectures on virtue and our culture, are the brittle gestures of a man performing paternal concern for the camera, not the child. The result is a family that no longer interacts but performs. Every gathering feels like an audition for a part no one wants to play. Polygamy, as sold by the Browns, was never just a lifestyle. It was a narrative of moral superiority. They weren't supposed to be ordinary. They were supposed to be proof that love, faith, and ego could coexist in one celestial family compound. But the longer the cameras rolled, the more it resembled a multi-spouse pyramid of dysfunction. The show's great reveal isn't that plural marriage fails. It's that Cody's version of it was always a monarchy pretending to be democracy. Once the wives stopped mistaking proximity for equality, the throne stood empty. Cody, still polishing his mythology, insists he's misunderstood, a man too principled for this corrupt modern world. In truth, he's the perfect emblem of it, obsessed with visibility, allergic to accountability, and convinced that sincerity is whatever he happens to feel at the moment. The Browns' transition from family to franchise was complete long ago. The show that once framed their lifestyle as spiritual exploration now functions as a televised autopsy. Every episode dissects a new failure while the survivors narrate over the remains. Yet, in a final irony, Sister Wives has achieved what the Browns never could: genuine pluralism. It belongs to everyone now: the audience, the critics, the armchair psychologists dissecting every tremor of Cody's ego. The family may be fractured, but the brand thrives. Dysfunction, it turns out, syndicates beautifully. The closing image of Cody and Robyn in their over-decorated Flagstaff mausoleum is almost biblical. Surrounded by artificial trees and unwrapped ornaments, they stand as the last believers in a faith no one else practices. The other wives have moved on, their children have matured, and the audience has grown too fluent in their lies to suspend disbelief any longer. Cody's sermons on chastity now sound like punchlines, his cowboy fantasies like a midlife costume party. Robyn, once the obedient disciple, now looks as though she's silently praying for reincarnation. The dream has not just ended, it has expired from self-inflicted suffocation. The collapse of the Brown family is not a tragedy of love lost, but of ego unchecked. The wives were not victims of faith. They were casualties of one man's need to feel chosen. The real miracle is that most of them escaped with any self left intact. Cody's empire will be remembered not for its piety or pioneering spirit, but for its perfect encapsulation of a modern sickness, the conflation of visibility with virtue. He mistook fame for validation, obedience for devotion, and applause for love. In the end, the Sister Wives experiment proved only one thing: that when you build a spiritual system around a single man's self-image, it will inevitably collapse under the weight of his reflection. And so, the curtain falls on the grand Brown pageant, the self-proclaimed prophet clutching his camera, the last wife feigning contentment, and the echo of departed women laughing somewhere off stage. Free at last from the gospel according to Cody.
Subscribe if you've ever wondered why we root for monsters who sound like us.